The rusty discovery. Maya Chen wiped the sweat from her brow, leaving a streak of grease across her forehead. The late summer heat had turned her modest garage into an oven, and the ancient fan in the corner only seemed to push the hot air around. She glanced at the Chen's auto repair sign hanging crookedly outside, its paint peeling just like her dreams of keeping the family business alive. The tow truck's headlights cut through the twilight, illuminating her small workspace as it reversed toward the entrance. Maya hadn't expected any deliveries, especially not at this hour, but money was money, and she couldn't afford to turn away work. "Got a special one for you," Maya called out Eddie, the local tow truck driver, as he stepped out of his cab. "Found it abandoned up on Miller's Ridge. Police checked it out, no reports matching it. After 30 days, they're letting me dispose of it. Thought you might want first dibs before it hits the scrapyard." Maya's breath caught as the truck's floodlights revealed the car. Under layers of dust and grime sat what appeared to be a 1969 Corvette Stingray, its once gleaming curves now dulled by time and neglect. But something about it made her skin prickle. The proportions were slightly off, the angles just a fraction different from what they should be, as if someone had tried to recreate the classic car from memory alone. "How much?" she asked, trying to keep her voice neutral despite the strange excitement building in her chest. Eddie shrugged. "Considerate payment for fixing my truck last month. Besides, this thing's probably more trouble than it's worth." After Eddie left, Maya circled the vehicle slowly. The metal felt odd under her fingers, too smooth, too consistent. No rust, despite its apparent age. The paint, while dirty, had a depth to it she'd never seen before, shifting subtly under the fluorescent lights like oil on water. She popped the hood and froze. The engine bay was both familiar and impossible. The basic layout resembled a typical V8, but the components, some were made of materials she'd never seen before, with an iridescent sheen that reminded her of butterfly wings. Others seemed to pulse with a faint inner light, like bioluminescent sea creatures. "What are you?" she whispered, reaching out to touch what should have been the carburetor, but looked more like a crystalline sculpture. A soft hum vibrated through her fingers, and the garage lights flickered. Maya jerked her hand back as a subtle warmth emanated from the engine, not like normal mechanical heat, but something almost alive. The sound of tires on gravel made her spin around. A sleek black sedan had pulled up outside, its windows tinted dark enough to be illegal. The driver's door opened, and a woman stepped out who seemed to command the very air around her. She wore an impeccably tailored suit that probably cost more than Maya made in a year, but it was her eyes that caught Maya's attention. They seemed to shift color like the Corvette's paint, from deep violet to electric blue. "I see you found my car," the woman said, her voice carrying an accent Maya couldn't place. "I'm Zoroix." She paused, studying Maya with an intensity that made the mechanic feel like she was being scanned. "And you, Maya Chen, are exactly who I've been looking for." Maya's hand tightened around the wrench in her pocket. "How do you know my name?" Zoroix smiled, and for a moment, Maya could have sworn her teeth were too sharp, too perfect. "Because, Ms. Chen, the fate of two worlds may depend on your unique ability to fix what others believe cannot be repaired. The question is, are you ready to learn what that car really is?" Outside, crickets chirped in the gathering darkness, and somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. But in Maya's garage, time seemed to stand still as she looked between the mysterious woman and the impossible car that had arrived on her doorstep. Her rational mind screamed at her to call the police, or at least to demand more explanations. Instead, she found herself gripping her wrench tighter and stepping forward. "Show me," she said, and the universe shifted ever so slightly on its axis. Strange frequencies. The next morning found Maya stretched across the floor of her garage, surrounded by tools that seemed laughably primitive compared to the technology before her. She hadn't slept. How could she, after what Zoroix had shown her? The Corvette was actually a biological mechanical hybrid vessel called the Nexus, capable of traversing not just space, but the thin membranes between dimensions. Its outer shell mimicked Earth vehicles to avoid detection, but its true form was something Maya's mind still struggled to comprehend. "The quantum manifold is severely damaged," Zora X said, her voice drawing Maya from under the car. The elegant woman sat perched on Maya's worn workbench, somehow managing to make it look like a throne. Without it, the Nexus cannot maintain dimensional stability. Maya slid out, clutching a component that pulsed with soft blue light. "This isn't just about a broken-down car, is it? You still haven't told me what you're running from." Zeraix's perfect posture faltered slightly. "There are those in my dimension who believe that emerging civilizations like Earth should be harvested for their resources. My people, the Astrolix, have protected younger worlds for millennia. But now our enemies have found a way to break through the dimensional barriers we maintain." Maya turned the glowing part over in her hands. What had looked like a simple fuel pump the night before now revealed itself as an incredibly complex piece of machinery. Crystalline structures within it shifted and flowed like mercury, following patterns she was beginning to recognize. "And you chose to hide on Earth, in my garage of all places. Not by chance." Zora X gracefully slid from the workbench, her movements too fluid to be entirely human. "Your grandfather's reputation reached even our dimension. The man who could fix anything, who saw patterns in machinery that others missed. We've been watching your family for generations." Maya's hand stilled. "My grandfather disappeared 10 years ago. Everyone said he just abandoned the garage, abandoned us. He didn't abandon anyone." Zora X's eyes softened. "He helped us seal a dimensional breach that would have destroyed half your solar system. He saved millions of lives, but the price was that he could never return home. The temporal radiation would have been fatal to anyone near him." The truth hit Maya like a physical blow. All these years, she thought he'd given up on them, on her. Instead, he'd sacrificed everything to save a world that would never know his name. A sudden high-pitched whine filled the garage. The Nexus's engine bay erupted in a cascade of shifting colors, and the air itself seemed to ripple. Maya's tools vibrated against the concrete floor, and the fluorescent lights overhead buzzed ominously. "They found us," Zora X said, her elegant facade cracking to reveal something ancient and worried beneath. "The dimensional barriers are weakening faster than I calculated. Without the quantum manifold repaired, we can't stop them." Maya stared at the component in her hands, her mind racing. The patterns in its crystalline structure reminded her of something. The way water flowed around rocks in a stream, always finding the path of least resistance. Her grandfather used to say that the best mechanics thought like the machine, felt its rhythm. "I think I know what's wrong," she said slowly, reaching for her toolbox. "The manifold isn't broken, it's out of tune. Like an engine running on the wrong timing. We don't need to fix it, we need to recalibrate it." Zora X blinked, her shifting eyes focusing sharply on Maya. "That's impossible. The quantum harmonics are beyond human technology." Maya grinned, pulling out a set of precision screwdrivers and her old acoustic guitar tuner. "Maybe, but harmonics are harmonics, whether you're talking about guitar strings or quantum mechanics. My grandfather taught me that everything in the universe vibrates to its own frequency. We just need to help this baby find its rhythm again." Outside, the sky began to darken unnaturally, and a low rumble shook the foundation of the garage. But Maya was already lost in the flow of the work, her hands moving with the certainty of someone who had inherited not just a garage, but a legacy of seeing the impossible and saying, "Let's fix it." The quantum manifold hummed in her hands, its light pulsing in time with her adjustments, like a heart learning to beat again, racing against time. The sky above Chen's auto repair had turned an impossible shade of purple, shot through with veins of electric blue. Thunder rolled continuously now, but no rain fell. Maya's hands were steady as she worked, even as reality itself seemed to waver around her. 3 minutes until dimensional breach, the Nexus announced, its voice carrying none of the anxiety that filled the garage. Maya had gotten used to the car talking. At this point, it was the least strange thing about her day. Zara X paced the length of the garage, her human disguise flickering like bad reception. Glimpses of iridescent scales and wings of pure energy showed through the expensive suit. The harvesters are forcing their way through, if they establish a foothold in this dimension. Not helping, Maya grunted, her arms deep in the Nexus's engine bay. The quantum manifold was responding to her adjustments, but something still wasn't right. The frequencies almost aligned, then slipped away like trying to hold smoke. A massive crack split the air, and through the garage's open door, they could see a tear forming in the sky. Through it, massive shapes moved with mechanical precision. Harvester ships, Maya realized, their dark forms blotting out the stars. 2 minutes until dimensional breach. Maya's mind raced. The manifold's harmonics were complex, layered like an orchestra playing in 4 dimensions. Her guitar tuner was picking up frequencies that shouldn't exist, patterns that made her head hurt if she looked at them too long. Then she remembered something her grandfather used to say. Sometimes the best solution isn't the most complex one. Sometimes you just need to listen to what the machine is trying to tell you. She closed her eyes, letting her hands rest on the manifold. Under the chaos of dimensional energies and quantum fluctuations, there was a rhythm. Simple, steady, like a heartbeat. Zara X, Maya called out. You said your people have been protecting worlds for millennia. How? The Astrolix woman paused her pacing. We maintain the dimensional barriers, keep the natural frequencies of each reality separate. But what if that's the problem? Maya's eyes snapped open. We're trying to force the manifold to create separation when maybe it wants harmony instead. 1 minute until dimensional breach. Maya grabbed her tools with renewed purpose. Instead of fighting against the quantum harmonics, she began adjusting them to work with Earth's natural frequencies. The manifold's light pulsed stronger, synchronizing with the vibrations she could feel coming from the ground itself. What are you doing? Zara X asked, alarm clear in her voice. Those settings will thin the dimensional barriers even further. Trust me, Maya said, though her heart was pounding. Sometimes you need to bend to avoid breaking. The tear in the sky widened, and the first harvester ship began pushing through. It was enormous, its surface covered in cutting tools and collection chambers designed to strip a planet bare. The air crackled with energy, and Maya's hair stood on end. 30 seconds until dimensional breach. The manifold was singing now, its crystalline structure resonating with everything around it. The earth, the air, even the harvester ships themselves. Maya made one final adjustment, her grandfather's teachings guiding her hands. If everything vibrates to its own frequency, she muttered, then everything can also be disrupted by the wrong one. The quantum manifold flared with blinding light. A wave of energy pulsed outward, not fighting against the dimensional tear, but harmonizing with it, creating a resonance that built upon itself. The harvester ships shuddered, their perfectly engineered forms suddenly subject to frequencies they were never designed to handle. 10 seconds until the Nexus's voice faltered as reality shifted around them. Maya watched in awe as the harvester ships began to break apart, not through violence, but through harmony. Their rigid structures unable to adapt to the new quantum resonance. The dimensional tear, instead of ripping wider, began to fold in on itself, the edges knitting together like a wound healing in reverse. Zara X stood frozen, her true form now fully visible, a being of crystalline light and flowing energy. You didn't try to strengthen the barriers, she whispered. You turned all of reality into a single harmony. Maya shrugged, though she couldn't hide her smile. Sometimes the best way to fix something isn't to force it back to what it was, but to help it become what it needs to be. The sky cleared, returning to its normal blue, though Maya suspected nothing would ever look quite the same to her again. The quantum manifold hummed contentedly, its frequencies now in perfect sync with the world around it. My people have spent thousands of years building walls between dimensions, Zara X said, shaking her head in wonder. We never considered that bridges might be stronger. Maya wiped her hands on a rag, looking at the impossible car that had brought such impossible changes to her life. "So," she said, "what other repairs does this thing need?" The human element. 2 weeks after the dimensional crisis, Chen's auto repair looked deceptively normal from the outside. Inside was a different story. The garage had become a hub of interdimensional engineering, with Maya splitting her time between fixing local cars and helping Zoretix establish what they now called harmonic bridges, stable connections between dimensions based on Maya's resonance theory. "Pass me that quantum spanner," Maya called from under a Toyota Camry. Regular customers still needed their oil changes, even if she was now technically an interdimensional mechanic. The tool floated across the garage, guided by one of the crystalline drones Zoretix had brought from her dimension. Maya had named it Sparky after it had developed a peculiar attachment to her ancient car battery charger. "Your integration of Earth technology with Astrolix principles is remarkable," Zoretix said, examining a device Maya had cobbled together from an old oscilloscope and quantum harmonics components. "My people's engineers are still trying to understand how you achieve stability using such simple tools." Maya rolled out from under the Camry, wiping oil from her hands. "That's probably why it works. We humans have had to make do with limited resources. Sometimes limitations breed creativity." The garage door opened, and Maya tensed as 3 black SUVs pulled up outside. Men in dark suits emerged, their movements too coordinated to be anything but government agents. Maya had been expecting this visit ever since the sky turned purple over her small town. "Ms. Chen," the lead agent said, flashing a badge too quickly to read. "I'm Agent Harrison with the Strategic Technology Acquisition Division. We need to discuss the unusual energy signatures we detected from your location 2 weeks ago." Maya stepped forward, positioning herself between the agents and her workspace. Behind her, she knew Zoretix had activated her human disguise, and the crystalline drones had disappeared into their dimensional pockets. "Just doing some experimental engine work," Maya said casually. "Nothing worth a government visit." Harrison's smile didn't reach his eyes. "We both know that's not true. Our sensors detected quantum fluctuations that shouldn't be possible with Earth technology. We're here to secure any alien artifacts and take them to a proper research facility." "You mean take them to be weaponized," Zoretix said, her accent now perfectly neutral American. "To be studied and reverse-engineered without understanding the principles behind them." The agents' hands drifted toward their weapons. Harrison's smile vanished. "Ma'am, this is a matter of national security. We can do this the easy way or—" He was cut off by a sound like 1,000 wind chimes in a hurricane. The air rippled, and suddenly the garage was filled with floating crystals, each one humming at a different frequency. The combined harmonics made the agents stumble, their equipment sparking and dying. "Gentlemen," Maya said, picking up her quantum-modified wrench, "let me explain something about mechanics. Every machine, every piece of technology, has its own rhythm. Try to force it, and it breaks. Work with it, and it shows you possibilities you never imagined." She gestured at her garage. "What we're doing here isn't about weapons or power. It's about understanding. About finding the harmonies between different worlds, different ways of thinking. You can't take this technology because it's not just technology. It's a partnership." As if to emphasize her point, the Nexus's engine roared to life, its quantum-enhanced purr sending vibrations through the concrete that made the agent's teeth rattle. Sparky reappeared, hovering protectively near Maya's shoulder. Harrison looked from Maya to Zoretix, then at the impossible technology surrounding them. His hand dropped from his weapon. "You're not going to come quietly, are you?" "No," Maya said, "but we're willing to talk. About cooperation instead of acquisition. About how humanity can join a larger community of worlds, not by force but by understanding." "And if we refuse?" Zoretix stepped forward, her human disguise flickering just enough to be unsettling. "Then you'll find that quantum harmonics can do far more than just bridge dimensions. Every electronic device, every weapon, Every vehicle you might bring against us operates at a specific frequency. Would you like a demonstration of what happens when those frequencies change? The threat hung in the air, but Maya saw the moment Harrison's expression shifted from suspicion to curiosity. He was starting to understand what she had learned, that true power didn't come from controlling technology, but from working in harmony with it. "I'll need to make some calls," he said finally. Maya smiled. "Take your time. We're not going anywhere." In fact, she gestured at one of the SUVs, where smoke was starting to curl from under the hood. "Looks like you might need a mechanic." Beyond the stars, 6 months after the government's first visit to Chen's auto repair, Maya stood in what her regular customers still thought was just a small-town garage. Only now, alongside the familiar smell of oil and rubber, the air hummed with possibilities. The Nexus sat in the center bay, its Corvette disguise long abandoned. Its true form gleamed with shifting colors, crystalline structures flowing seamlessly into organic curves. Around it, a dozen engineers, both human and astrolix, worked together, their different approaches to technology creating innovations neither species could have achieved alone. The harmonic network is stable across all 17-dimensional bridges, Zora X announced, her true form now a familiar sight in the garage. Light rippled through her crystalline wings as she studied a holographic display. "The harvesters haven't attempted another incursion since we implemented the Maya protocol." Maya looked up from where she was teaching a young astrolix engineer how to repair an Earth combustion engine. "Still feels weird having something named after me." "Get used to it," called out Agent Harrison from his workstation. After their confrontation, he'd become their strongest ally within the government, helping to establish what was officially termed the International Advanced Technology Integration Program. Unofficially, everyone just called it the garage. Maya walked over to a quiet corner where a familiar figure sat surrounded by tools and diagrams. Her grandfather smiled up at her, his hair now streaked with dimensional energy that made it shimmer like starlight. The temporal radiation that had kept him away was no longer a barrier thanks to the harmonic technologies they'd developed. "Never thought I'd see the day," he said, gesturing at the diverse group working in his old garage. Humans and astrolix, quantum mechanics and grease monkeys, all working together. "You've built something amazing here, kiddo." "We all did," Maya corrected, picking up a quantum spanner that had once been a regular wrench. "That's the whole point. Every piece matters, every perspective adds something new." A soft chime echoed through the garage, an incoming transmission from one of the harmonic bridges. A holographic window opened, showing a scene from a dimension that had only recently joined their network. The beams there looked like living fractals, their thoughts expressed through patterns of light and shadow. "Greetings, Maya-Chen," the fractal beings communicated. "We seek your assistance. Our dimension's fundamental frequencies are showing signs of discord. We have engineers of great skill, but perhaps we need a mechanic's perspective." Maya shared a smile with her grandfather. 6 months ago, she'd been worried about keeping a small garage in business. Now she was helping maintain the harmony of multiple dimensions, all because she'd understood something that both humans and aliens had forgotten. That sometimes the simplest solutions came from seeing the connections that were already there. "Send me your readings," she said. "Let's see what we can fix together." Zara X appeared beside her, placing a crystalline hand on Maya's shoulder. "You know, when I first came to Earth, I thought I was just looking for a place to hide the Nexus. Instead, I found something far more valuable, a reminder that true advancement comes not from superior technology, but from understanding the connections between all things." Maya picked up her toolbox, now a hybrid of Earth tools and astrolix technology. Inside, her old guitar tuner sat alongside quantum diagnostic equipment, a symbol of how far they'd come and a reminder of how they'd gotten there. "Ready to make some house calls across dimensions?" she asked Zoretix with a grin. The astrolix woman's wings shimmered with amusement. "As long as you're the mechanic." They walked toward the Nexus together, surrounded by the hum of machinery and the chatter of two species working as one. Through the garage doors, the sky sparkled with hints of other dimensions, not threatening tears in reality now, but carefully maintained bridges between worlds. Maya Chen, interdimensional mechanic, couldn't think of a better way for a small-town garage to grow. After all, in the end, it wasn't about fixing machines or even bridging dimensions. It was about finding the rhythm that connected everything and helping it all work together in harmony. As the Nexus powered up for their next service call, Maya realized that some things hadn't changed at all. She was still just a mechanic, listening to the rhythms of machines and helping them run better. The garage was still a place where broken things got fixed. The universe had just gotten a lot bigger, and there were a lot more things that needed fixing. And Maya wouldn't have it any other way.